So, what I'm going to talk about is the issue of lethal autonomous weapons systems, sometimes known as killer robots. So that term, killer robots, has been used widely in the press, and it's the name of the campaign to stop killer robots. The name killer robot actually upsets some AI people because it sounds as if we're building robots, we, the AI community, are building robots to kill people, or that robots could just turn into killer robots overnight. So neither of those things are really true. But there are very significant developments in the area of lethal autonomous weapons systems. You might see in the media claims that, although this is 20 to 30 years in the future, or this is a subject of science fiction, this is actually very real. There are already autonomous weapons systems that can attack and destroy facilities, and if those facilities contain humans, then they will be dead. So, as the process of moving our warfare systems from purely human-driven to a mixture of humans and robots, as that process has unfolded, it's been part of the US policy now for about 15 years that we should move the US Armed Forces to at least 1/3 of all vehicles being autonomous vehicles by, I think, 2020. So this is a very, very serious and very large-scale development. So one of the things that people worried about was, is it right to have machines deciding who to kill and deciding to kill them? The US formulated a policy in 2012 which says that appropriate levels of human judgment need to be involved in any decision to attack humans. Unfortunately, it leaves open the definition of appropriate levels of human judgment, and it also allows for the possibility that under certain circumstances the directive can be overridden by the Secretary of Defense. So it's not a very strong policy, but it is a guide. In 2013, Christoph Haynes, who's a special rapporteur on extrajudicial killings and torture, produced a report analyzing the possibility of autonomous weapons and saying that they are an affront to human dignity and they open the possibility of violating human rights on an enormous scale, and therefore we should work towards a ban. In the same month, the campaign to stop killer robots was launched. That consists of about 15 international organizations, including Human Rights Watch, which is one of the leading human rights organizations in the world. Last year, the United Nations convened formal meetings at the Conference on Disarmament in Geneva, which is the venue where arms treaties are debated and formulated and eventually signed by the member nations of the United Nations. So there have been 3 meetings so far, and those meetings have discussed potential definitions. They've reached, I would say, a consensus that meaningful human control needs to be applied in the use of weapons. But they have not yet reached the stage of drawing up a treaty or convening what's called the Group of Government Experts, or GGE, which is the formal stage where we begin to write definitions of the technical terms and then start drawing up the content of a treaty. On the side of the AI community, I would say that the community and its representatives, its professional organizations, have been a little bit slow to catch up with these developments. So arguably we should have had this meeting 10 years ago and been thinking hard about this and reaching conclusions about whether this kind of thing is a good idea. The implications for the AI community are enormous, because if AI systems are out there on a mass scale being used in warfare, then this would be the most prominent application of artificial intelligence in the eye of the public of the world. And that might not be a good thing for the field. So it's clear that there are very high stakes here, not just for the AI community, but also for humanity at large. So in 2015, in January 2015, there was a debate at AAAI conference in Austin, Texas, and Steve Goose from Human Rights Watch and Ron Arkin from Georgia Tech talked about the issues on both sides. A very honorable debate. The goal of the campaign to stop killer robots, of which Steve Goose is a member, is really to get the professional associations to adopt a policy in opposition to autonomous weapons, in order that this could then provide some momentum in the discussions at the United Nations. It would provide more political pressure on the nations to actually move ahead and reach a decision on a treaty. So after the talk that I gave at the United Nations in April in Geneva, I wrote an editorial in Nature which explained my position, and I'll say in a little bit exactly what that position is. And then, since then, FLI, which is the Future of Life Institute, an organization at MIT and Harvard, took that letter and turned it into an open letter which is available for everybody in the AI community to sign. So let me just bring up that letter. So this is the address, futureoflife.org/AI/open letter autonomous weapons. And as you can see, it was embargoed until this morning, but several news organizations were already publishing articles about this yesterday, starting with The Guardian. And what the letter says is that although there are arguments on both sides that autonomous weapons could perhaps be more accurate and kill fewer civilians in some particular circumstances, and on the other side, it may be a fundamental devaluation of human life and dignity if machines can decide who to kill or whether to kill you in particular. For us, the primary argument was to look at the endpoint of an arms race. So if there is no treaty, there will almost undoubtedly be an arms race in autonomous weapons. And the endpoint of that will be the availability of very large numbers of autonomous weapons that are extremely lethal. So you can think of, if you imagine small autonomous quadcopters, these can be reduced to a very small size, the size of a large beetle, and still carry enough explosive to blow a hole in somebody's head. And then swarms of those, they're going to cost, not much more than a bullet. And then enormous swarms of those, by the tens of millions, could be dropped on cities and used to wipe out entire populations. They could be dropped on cities and used not to wipe out, but just to terrorize entire populations. So they could be commanded to patrol and fly around and eliminate any signs of dissent or unrest, for example. So it seems inevitable that they would be used, and used in ways that would render human life almost valueless in large parts of the world. So our view is this is a terrible potential outcome for the human race, and we're better off with a treaty that would control and, in some circumstances, ban the development of these weapons. So right now, as of about 10 minutes ago, we have about 5,300 signatories, and of those, almost 1,500 are AI researchers from more than 50 countries. There are 6 past presidents of the AAAI, which is the Association for the Advancement of AI. We have the current and former president of the IEEE Robotics and Automation Society. We have the current and 2 former presidents of ICHCAI, have senior directors from Google, such as Demis Hassabis, who's CEO of Google DeepMind, Yann LeCun, who is the research director of Facebook and one of the leaders in deep learning. We have Eric Horvitz, who's the managing director of Microsoft Research. We have Steve Wozniak, Elon Musk, Stephen Hawking, Noam Chomsky, and a number of other famous philosophers and physicists and other scientists. So just since yesterday, this has gone up by about 3,500 people assigned just since yesterday. So the letter has been public now since the announcement, since the article came out in The Guardian, and that's led to a very large number of people signing it. Okay, so I'm happy to take any questions if people have them.